Have you ever heard of an illustrated journal? That's to say, a diary where you record your life and your experiences and your world in both words and in pictures. It's something that when I first learned about it, I thought, this is the answer. I love to write and I was interested in learning to draw, but I wasn't really sure what I should draw or how I should learn or how I should make it into a regular practice. And keeping an illustrated journal turned out to be the answer for me. And I started to just record in words and pictures everything in my life. Food that I ate, the clothes that I wore, my pets, my friends, the houses in my street, everything that I experienced, I would draw and then watercolor and write about. And it is a really interesting way to get into a drawing habit, but also to get in deeper insights into your life by creating this beautiful multidimensional record. Well, today we're going to talk to Hollie Rose, who is an illustrated journal keeper. She's also a teacher at Sketchbook Skool, and she teaches people how to start their own illustrated journals. And she's going to talk to us about this experience that she's had, what it's done for her, how she came about it, and the tools that she uses, and lots of other stuff. It's going to be a really fun chat. And we're also going to talk about zines, and we're going to talk about making stickers, and we're just going to talk about having a life full of art every day, which is something that is wonderful, and I hope you want it as much as I do. Here's Hollie. Hi, Hollie.
Hi.
It's nice
Good
to
to
have you
see you.
here. Yes, it's nice to have you here to talk about art and sketchbooks and Spark and Sketchbook Skool and whatever else it is that we come to. So you've been a member of Sketchbook Skool's community for a while now.
Yeah, since 2016, when I first took my first class.
Okay, that's a long time ago. But you have you always made art for yourself?
No, I've been a creative and a maker over the years, but not always art, and it's kind of come and gone. It wasn't until I came across you, Danny, at a online art teacher summit that I really got into sketchbook keeping. And then I've kept that practice ever since July 2016. I'm up to, I think, 71 sketchbooks now.
So art and teaching art is been part of your portfolio, as it were. But you yourself have kind of come and gone with your own personal art making. It sounds.
Yeah, done scrapbooking and photography and knitting. And all along the way, I've tried to keep little journals because I would walk into a bookstore or an art store and I would love the feeling of a journal. But what most often happened when I was keeping a written journal was that I would start and I'd get a few pages in and the habit would stop. I couldn't seem to keep the habit with a written journal. But there was something about a sketchbook that answered my desire to keep a record of my life in both words and pictures.
Well, why do you think that is?
It's such an interesting thing. I think that, first of all, I've got to keep my hands moving. There's something about the need to create, to make, to just move the pen. And then when I'm observing the world, it keeps it helps me keep a record of life, but it also keeps it's a way to calm myself down in the evening, to reflect, to process my day. I feel like it must have something to do with the benefits that I'm gaining from the practice of keeping a sketchbook.
Yes, you have been teaching as part of Spark almost from the beginning. Tell me about some of the teaching, the classes that you've been teaching and some of the experiences that you've had.
Well, Spark has been just an amazing, amazing experience. I've been able to meet so many people through Spark, and then the ability to teach classes with Spark has been a real gift for me. It's allowed me to dive deeper and to focus on certain areas. But then I started teaching classes like nature journaling and improving imagination, where we'd focus on drawing from imagination. Then I went on to teach the illustrated journaling course starting in September. And then I've taught a lot of pop-up classes, zines, map making, creating stickers with Procreate. So every one of those classes has allowed me to not only dive deeper into my practice, but then to share that with others.
So tell me a bit about your own practice. Tell me about the types of things that you like to put in your sketchbooks and the types of materials that you like to use.
So the themes that show up in my sketchbooks are food, family life, objects, just mundane things that are, sitting on the counter, the table. Also nature journaling, where we go. So I always keep a travel journal if we're on a vacation. Thinking about out and about, I do sketching as well. So I feel like there's a little bit of everything in my sketchbooks. And then when it comes to the materials, I love to use Lamy Safaris and watercolor. They're kind of my go-to, but then I've branched out so much more from that to colored pencils, to gouache, Posca markers, mixed media. It feels like every workshop or class that's come to Spark, I've learned something from those instructors, and that's added to my art collection and added to my pages of my sketchbooks.
And what is the experience like of teaching, for instance, your illustrated journaling class, which is it's funny because illustrated journaling is kind of at the heart of Sketchbook Skool, but it's not something we've necessarily had a focused course on. In some ways, everything we did was about illustrated journaling, but we haven't really focused on all the different techniques and different things to think about with an illustrated journal, because an illustrated journal is more than just like, here's what I did today. It can take on so many different forms and subjects. So tell us a bit about what you're focusing on when you do it.
So when I'm teaching illustrated journaling, I'm thinking of capturing our stories one page at a time. So our stories can include anything. It's from the events that occur in our life. It's the weather and the seasons. It's our pets, our family life. It's the food we eat, the places we visit. It's capturing time and place, but also capturing the images, but our thoughts, our feelings, the wonderings we have. So I think it's putting both the images and the text together to create this story of a moment.
And do you think that people take naturally to this idea of illustrated journal keeping, or is it something that you need to really bring people along and introduce them to?
That's interesting because I feel like there are people that naturally do it. They've been maybe doing this for a long period of time without even calling it that. And then there are some people that maybe they've done more of skill-based drawings or practices in their sketchbooks. And so I think there's a little bit of both. People that really are into illustrated journaling and those that are learning about it.
Is it a private thing, do you think? In other words, if I do a drawing of, my cat or something, and I share that in the yard, it's different than if I'm really sharing a record of my life. And certainly something as simple as what I ate for lunch isn't a big personal secret, but I think we don't think of journals and diaries as something that we're making to share or that we can share with a feeling of safety. What do you think about that?
It's an interesting thing about how much to share and what to share, but everything that I've shared, I've gained so much back for the time when I've been vulnerable, whether it's with my sketchbooks or my zines. And so I think encouraging that ability to share is allowing for a human connection. So the people, when they're reading your journal pages or your illustrated journal pages, they're finding the connection, not just based off of the image that you drew, but what you wrote to go along with it. And so at first I was really encouraging students to use sticky notes or Procreate to block out their journaling if they didn't feel comfortable sharing it. But it's been something interesting to think about is, where does the human connection come from? What's the purpose to share? And so I've definitely put myself out a lot and shared a lot in my illustrated journaling. And I think that that's really an important piece to share with others.
Yeah, I feel like the people who influenced me the most to want to draw, but also to want to keep illustrated journals, and I'm talking about Ross Stendhal or Hannah Hinkman or Robert Crumb or Dan Price, all these people are very forthcoming with what's on their mind, what their struggles are, you know, things that would seem fairly personal. But in the end, I think nobody has stuff that is such top secret and so unique to them that they can't share it. And in fact, when you make yourself vulnerable, you forge connections because of you're allowing them in. They can trust you, and you can be authentic. So you can really say stuff that is universally true, even though it comes from your own personal experience. I mean, I think about something like Diary of Anne Frank. You know, it's such a unique experience that she had, obviously, and yet there's something all essentially human about that kind of a thing that we shouldn't be ashamed to share. It's in a lot of ways, I think, one of the most essential aspects of art making is this sharing of the human experience. Tell me about some of the other pop-ups that you've done, and can you think of some of the interesting things that happened in those pop-up sessions that you've done?
Yeah, so I've taught pop-ups on several different subjects, but some of the more recent ones, map making, zines, and creating stickers from Procreate, those have been a lot of fun. And what's been really neat is not only sharing my work, but then also having other people take that class and then go create their own zines, their own stickers. And then I've been the recipient of some of those. I've received so many zines in the mail from students from my class, and that's been really exciting. I was speaking with one student, and she was talking about how being, or about how sending that zine out, she wasn't expecting the response that came back. And my mailbox has had so much mail in it just by me sending out zines to other people and being willing to share my life and my artwork with them.
Right, sharing is a boomerang, and you get stuff back when you put it out there. So, I think it takes some courage, but I don't know anybody so far who has had a negative experience from doing it. So I'm hoping that continues. Just to explain what a pop-up is really a one-time little mini workshop where we take a subject that may not be extensive enough to be a whole class, but is something that we can teach and something that could be interesting. So you've become the master of so many of these pop-ups. And I think it's just interesting because it also says to people, you know what, try this out. And then if you want to go deeper, there are ways to continue that journey, but, you know, just have a sample, have a little smorgasbord. Yeah, that's great. Now, you're also a Spark student. I know that you go to a lot of classes, and tell me a bit about what your experience is as being a member of Spark as well as a member of the faculty.
Yeah, when Spark first started, a lot of the classes we would attend, we'd draw together, we'd get to share, and it has grown and become much deeper and much richer. So as a student, I've benefited from the relationships I've built with other people here at Spark, which has been just amazing. But then being able to take the workshops, so once a month there's a workshop, I can dive deep into a topic and learn from somebody else and take a piece of that into my practice. Everyone has been an amazing experience. I love to take the workshops live and complete the art in the moment. It pushes me to create something and to finish a piece. And about partway through each workshop, I think I'm not going to be able to do it. And each time the instructor guides, and it's amazing at the end what you're able to do. And then there's a whole week of Spark classes to take. Some of them I've been able to take live, and some I watch the recorded versions. But each class, each instructor offers something different. And so I've been able to build my art skills through whether it's gouache or cross-hatching, jelly plate printing. There's so much to inspire you, to keep you creating and learning here at Spark. So I feel like even someone who has been teaching art and has been keeping a sketchbook for years and has learned so much already, there's so much for them in Spark as both an instructor and as a student as well.
That's great. That's a nice little commercial there for Spark, which is not what I intended from you, but that's great too. No, I think to me, it's valuable to hear somebody who has been part of Sketchbook Skool and then has gone through the Spark experience to really explain, because I think a lot of people don't quite get what it's about.
Mhm.
Finally, I want to ask you, you are a teacher, you're teaching in schools, you're doing stuff at Spark. You're also a mom with a bunch of teenagers. How do you how do you manage this, and how does your art making fit into it? In other words, are you like how do you find the time, and why do you find the time when you could be, I don't know, doing other stuff or doing stuff for your family and so forth? Do you feel how do you make that balance work? Thanks.
So balance is a tough thing. It's one of those things where you think about priorities. And for me, the last 6 years, art has become a bigger priority in my life. There's things that have maybe went off the table that aren't as important. But when I get to the end of the day, if I haven't created art, I feel like something's missing. And it can be as simple as a 10-15 minute sketch that makes me feel like, okay, now I've created something today. And your tank is full, which helps you then be able to take care of others.
Well, thanks very much for sharing your experiences and for being part of Spark, for being part of Sketchbook School, and for sharing all of your beautiful work. This has been really fun.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be a part of Spark and a part of Sketchbook School. It's a big part of my life.
Isn't Holly terrific? She has so much energy. She's such a great teacher, and she is so enthusiastic about making art. So, if you would like to learn more about keeping an illustrated journal or some of the many other things that we teach at Sketchbook School, come to sketchbookskool.com and sign up for a 2-week trial of Spark. You can take classes with Holly and so many other fantastic artists. In fact, we have about 2 to 3 hours of classes on average every single day. You don't, of course, have to take all 2 to 3 hours, but whenever you feel like making art, there are people teaching it and making it alongside you live. So find out what that's like, because it's pretty cool and it's pretty transformative. And if you really want to become an artist, and I don't mean a professional artist, but just somebody who has art as a meaningful thing in their life, Spark is a fantastic way to get there. I hope you'll check it out. I hope I'll see you there soon. And Holly too.